Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt like you were staring into an abyss? Like there was something missing, something fundamentally empty behind that charming smile? 3 months ago, I received a message from Sarah, a brilliant marketing executive from Denver. She wrote, "I thought I'd found my soulmate. He was everything I dreamed of, charismatic, successful, attentive. But 6 months in, I started feeling like I was losing myself, like I was drowning in someone else's reflection." Sarah had unknowingly encountered what the legendary psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung warned us about over a century ago: the dark manifestation of the human shadow self. Jung, the master of the unconscious mind, understood something profound about the human psyche that modern psychology is only beginning to grasp. Jung once said, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." But what happens when someone's shadow isn't just unintegrated? What happens when it becomes their entire identity? Today, I'm going to reveal Jung's most guarded insights about recognizing the narcissistic shadow in relationships. These aren't just red flags. They're soul-deep warnings that could save you from years of psychological manipulation and help you reclaim your authentic self. We're going to explore 10 profound signs that Jung's work reveals about narcissistic partners. Each one is a key to unlocking the prison of confusion that these relationships create. By the end of this journey, you'll possess the ancient wisdom to protect your soul's integrity. So settle in, open your heart to this transformative knowledge, and prepare to see relationships through the eyes of one of history's greatest minds. Sign number 1, the grandiose persona mask. Jung taught us that we all wear personas, social masks that help us navigate the world. But the narcissistic shadow creates what Jung called the inflated persona, a grandiose mask that has completely consumed the authentic self. Jung observed, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." In narcissistic individuals, this persona becomes their entire reality. Meet Jennifer from Atlanta. She fell from Marcus, a self-proclaimed entrepreneur who spoke constantly about his empire and legacy. He name-dropped celebrities, claimed exclusive connections, and painted himself as destined for greatness. But Jennifer slowly realized that beneath the grandiose stories, there was no substance, no real achievements, no genuine relationships, no authentic self. This matters because when someone lives entirely in their inflated persona, they cannot form genuine connections. They're not loving you. They're using you as a mirror to reflect their false grandeur back to them. Your authentic self becomes invisible in their presence. Sign number 2, the empathy void, emotional vampirism. Jung understood that healthy individuals possess what he called feeling function, the ability to value and connect with others' emotional experiences. The narcissistic shadow, however, creates what Jung identified as emotional vampirism. As Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But narcissistic individuals cannot be transformed because they cannot truly receive or process your emotional reality. Rachel from Phoenix describes it perfectly. When I shared my deepest fears about losing my mother to cancer, he listened for 30 seconds, then immediately started talking about his own stress at work. It was like my pain just bounced off him, like he was made of glass. This void isn't just insensitivity. It's a fundamental inability to perceive others as separate beings with valid inner worlds. They see you as an extension of themselves, existing only to serve their emotional needs. Your suffering doesn't register because, in their shadow-consumed psyche, you don't really exist as an independent soul. Sign number 3. The control matrix. Puppeteering your reality. Jung discovered that the shadow self seeks to dominate and control what it cannot understand or integrate. In relationships, this manifests as what Jung called psychological colonization, the systematic invasion and reconstruction of your inner world. Sign number 3. The control matrix. Puppeteering your reality. Jung discovered that the shadow self seeks to dominate and control what it cannot understand or integrate. In relationships, this manifests as what Jung called psychological colonization, the systematic invasion and reconstruction of your inner world. Jung warned, quote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely," unquote. Narcissistic individuals, unable to face their authentic selves, must instead reshape everyone around them to match their distorted internal reality. Lisa from Seattle recognized this pattern. He gradually convinced me that my friends were toxic, my family didn't understand me, and my career dreams were unrealistic. Slowly, my entire world became filtered through his perspective. I stopped trusting my own intuition, my own voice. I became a stranger to myself. This psychological puppeteering happens so gradually that victims often mistake it for love and care. But Jung knew the difference. Genuine love seeks to liberate your authentic self, while shadow-driven control seeks to imprison it. When someone needs to reshape your reality to feel secure, they're not loving you, they're consuming you. Sign number 4. The projection weapon, making you their shadow. Perhaps Jung's most crucial insight about the narcissistic shadow is the mechanism of projection. Unable to face their own darkness, they cast it onto their partners like a psychological poison. Jung observed, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But narcissistic individuals reverse this wisdom. Everything they cannot accept about themselves becomes your fault, your deficiency, your darkness. Maria from Chicago lived this nightmare. Whenever he lied, he'd accuse me of being dishonest. When he flirted with others, I was suddenly jealous and insecure. When he raged, I was too sensitive and emotionally unstable. I started believing I was the problem. I began to see myself through his projections. This is soul murder. Jung understood that when we accept others' projections of their shadow, we lose connection with our authentic self. We become carriers of their darkness while they maintain their false light. Recognition of this pattern is the first step towards psychological liberation.
Sign number 5. The intermittent reinforcement trap. Love bombing and withdrawal. Jung studied the psychology of addiction and discovered that intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest psychological bonds. The narcissistic shadow weaponizes this principle through what Jung called emotional gambling. As Jung noted, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. But intermittent reinforcement trains you to abandon your authentic needs in desperate pursuit of those fleeting moments of validation.
Emma from Portland describes the cycle. In the beginning, he was intoxicating. Texts all day, surprise visits, declarations of eternal love. Then suddenly, silence, distance, coldness. Just when I'd decide to leave, he'd return with that original intensity. I became addicted to those highs, willing to endure longer and longer periods of emotional starvation. Jung recognized this as a form of psychological conditioning. Your nervous system becomes hijacked, craving the neurochemical high of their attention while your authentic self withers in the valleys of their withdrawal. This isn't love. It's exploitation of your deepest human need for connection.
Sign number 6. The gaslighting maze. Distorting your reality. Jung understood that reality is co-created through relationship. Healthy partners help us see ourselves more clearly. But the narcissistic shadow creates what Jung termed reality distortion fields, systematic attacks on your perception and memory. Jung wrote, "The foundation of all mental illness is the unwillingness to experience legitimate suffering. Narcissistic individuals, unable to bear the pain of their authentic reality, must convince you that your perception of their behavior is the distortion." Taylor, from Nashville, explains he would promise something, then later deny he ever said it. He described conversations that never happened. When I'd question him, he'd say I was remembering wrong or being paranoid. I started recording conversations just to trust my own memory. This is psychological warfare against your sanity. Jung knew that when we lose trust in our own perception, we lose connection to our inner wisdom. Gaslighting doesn't just confuse your mind, it severs your relationship with your soul's guidance system. Your intuition becomes your enemy instead of your ally.
Sign number 7. The Triangulation Theater. Creating jealousy and competition. Jung observed that healthy relationships exist in what he called the sacred circle of two. But the narcissistic shadow cannot tolerate this intimacy and creates what Jung identified as triangulation dynamics, deliberately introducing third parties to destabilize your connection. As Jung noted, the meeting place of the conscious and unconscious is where life lives. But triangulation prevents this sacred meeting by keeping you in a constant state of vigilance and competition. Melissa from Miami recognized this pattern. He would constantly mention his ex, how amazing his female co-workers were, how other women appreciated him in ways I didn't. Then he'd deny it was intentional, saying I was imagining things. I was always fighting for his attention, competing with phantoms. Jung understood that this serves the narcissistic shadow's need for what he called narcissistic supply, constant validation from multiple sources. But more insidiously, it prevents you from ever feeling secure enough to express your authentic self.
You remain forever performing, forever trying to win against competitors who may not even exist.
Sign 8. The empathy weaponization, using your compassion against you. Jung celebrated empathy as one of humanity's highest achievements, our ability to feel with another soul. But he also warned about what he called shadow empathy, when your greatest strength becomes the weapon used to destroy you. Jung observed, your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. But narcissistic individuals exploit your inward-looking compassion to keep you dreaming their dreams instead of awakening to your truth.
Grace from Denver shares her awakening. Every time I tried to set boundaries, he'd break down. Sob stories about his difficult childhood, his depression, his past trauma. My empathy would kick in, and I'd end up comforting him instead of addressing my needs. I became the therapist in my own relationship. This is the cruelest manipulation because it corrupts your most beautiful quality. Jung knew that authentic vulnerability invites mutual healing, while weaponized vulnerability creates one-way emotional servitude. True healing requires reciprocal empathy, not the sacrifice of your soul on the altar of someone else's unhealed wounds.
Sign number 9. The success sabotage, dimming your light. Jung understood that authentic love celebrates the beloved's wholeness and success. But the narcissistic shadow operates from what Jung called zero-sum consciousness, the belief that your light diminishes theirs. As Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. But narcissistic partners systematically attack this privilege through subtle and overt sabotage of your achievements and dreams.
Crystal from Vegas experienced this pattern. Every time something good happened, a promotion, a creative project, even losing weight, he'd find ways to undermine it. You only got promoted because of quotas, or you're becoming obsessed with your appearance. He made my successes feel like failures. Jung recognized this as the shadow's inability to tolerate the light in others. When someone consistently diminishes your accomplishments, questions your capabilities, or creates chaos during your moments of triumph, they're revealing their soul's poverty. Your success threatens their false self-image, so they must dim your light to maintain their illusion of superiority.
Sign number 10. The soul disconnection, spiritual vampirism. Jung's deepest insight was about the human soul's need for what he called numinous experience, connection to something greater than ourselves. The narcissistic shadow creates what Jung termed spiritual vampirism, systematically draining your connection to your own sacred essence. Jung warned, the greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. In relationships with narcissistic shadows, the tragedy is your unlived, authentic life, the person you came here to be.
Sophia from Portland describes her spiritual awakening. I realized I'd stopped praying, stopped journaling, stopped doing anything that connected me to my inner wisdom. He'd mock my spiritual phases or create drama whenever I tried to nurture my soul. I became spiritually anorexic, cut off from the source of my true power. This is the ultimate goal of the narcissistic shadow, to disconnect you from your soul's guidance so completely that you become dependent on their validation for your sense of worth and direction.
Jung knew that when we lose touch with our inner divine spark, we become vulnerable to every form of psychological manipulation. As we reach the end of this transformative journey through Jung's wisdom, let's pause and integrate these profound revelations. We've Vampirism. Each of these signs is more than just a red flag. They're invitations to reclaim your authentic power. Jung believed that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The painful recognition of these patterns isn't just about avoiding toxic partners. It's about awakening to your own shadow work and soul's calling. But here's the mystical truth Jung discovered. Every relationship that doesn't serve your highest good is actually serving your soul's evolution. Every narcissistic encounter is an invitation to strengthen your connection to your inner wisdom, to develop unshakable boundaries, and to become so aligned with your authentic self that you naturally repel shadow-driven individuals. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." When you courageously embrace this journey of self-acceptance, you become unavailable for relationships that require you to abandon your authentic self. Your soul has guided you to this moment of recognition for a reason. Trust that guidance. Honor that wisdom. You are more powerful than you know, more valuable than you've been taught, and more deserving of authentic love than you may currently believe.
If this knowledge has resonated with your soul, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Share this video with any woman in your life who needs to hear Jung's timeless wisdom. And in the comments below, share your own experiences, not the details, but your moment of recognition, your commitment to change, your declaration of self-worth. Remember, you came to this earth to live your authentic life, to love with an open heart, and to create from your soul's deepest truth. Don't let anyone's shadow eclipse your light. Until next time, trust your inner wisdom, honor your authentic self, and remember, your soul knows the way home.